first of all, I'd like to introduce our judge, who wants to say a few words. As we mentioned earlier, as Jim mentioned during his speech, that we changed the format for the judging for the awards this year, and we felt that it was important to bring a specialist in the area. In this particular area is James Burke, in the area of retailing. And James has quite an impressive CV in terms of his experience and knowledge. He's only one of 13 people in Ireland that holds an MBA in retailing and wholesaling. He's almost 30 years experience, going from the shop floor right to boardroom level. And over the past year, he's worked with over 100 independent retailers across all retail sectors. His own company, James Burke and Associates, is a leading provider of management development programs for Retail Excellence Ireland, and many of you will have seen him on television over the past year, along with some other guests here this evening, on Fergal Quinn's retail therapy program. So if I could ask you to put your hands together for James, just like to say a few words on the judging. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, how do I follow Gunter? That's a difficult one. I was probably the only person in the room at the beginning of the evening that paid a lot of attention to where the fire exits were, because this is the difficult piece, and hopefully everybody's going to be happy at the end of the awards later. Let me give you a little bit of feedback in terms of what happened and how we went about the task. As Gunter said, and I think as every speaker said so far, it's about change. It's an industry about change. It's Octabuild looking at the competition and bringing about change. And it is individual retailers within the sector saying, this is how I'm putting my stamp on that change. The task was 88 shops, 7,000 kilometres, one flat tyre, 90 days, 2,212 different audit points, and 1,264 different photographs. So that's the background to what's behind. What you'll be interested in next in terms of when the scoring and the results comes out, just to remind you that this year the format, as you heard, changed very much. It was broken into 4 categories. You had visual merchandising. How did the shop look? How was it merchandised? Which took 20% of the marks. You had customer service initiatives, that all-important area, which took another 20%. And most importantly, as the scene was set earlier, in terms of sales growth, what was the plan? What were shops doing? How were individual shops fighting back? And I suppose that was the purpose of that sales growth plan that we heard about earlier. I suppose for the next time round, if there is a next time round for marks, it is an area that shops can gain more marks in by taking that template and filling it out, and putting that structure that's necessary for sales growth plan. And lastly, there was a bonus for shops that excelled, that had gone out of the ordinary and done something very unusual. Things that were genuinely very good out there. Part of the process when I entered each shop was that I went to the counter with a query. Very often that was the trade counter, and very often it was a query to do with plumbing. And almost in every single case, the service that was achieved was very, very strong, and I would suggest to you, possibly stronger than some other retail sectors. Extraordinarily high marks on service. I'm aware that a lot of you are doing a lot of work in that area, and certainly from my experience and those first 5 minutes in every shop when I wasn't known, I think service levels came across as being exceptional. The other area that scored particularly highly was the work that you are doing with the likes of the Octabuild companies in terms of joint activity at shop level with the supply base that you have. Almost every shop scored full marks in that area with a catalogue of events and activities that you were running. Price ticketing, although there were a few small exceptions, scored very highly. And an unusual one, despite of the cutbacks, in many cases, there was a lot of innovative work going on with local communities, sponsorship, building a bench, sending the staff down to build a bench in the local town park. So despite the recession, despite the cutbacks, a lot of interaction with the local communities. There were opportunity areas. Those practical opportunity areas are probably areas that next time round a lot of you can add additional marks very, very easily. And probably as an industry, certainly some of these need to move on as part of this change. Shelf cleaning was an obvious missed opportunity for over 80% of the shops who lost marks in that area. And interestingly, while customer service was excellent, customer service signage was almost absent in most cases. So there's probably an opportunity there. Huge work, I think, going on in promotional activity, driving sales, madness days, different types of promotional activity. What was remarkable in parallel to that is the execution of those promotions in some cases probably has some journey to go in terms of signage, in terms of use of end caps, in terms of impact. I think the other area that there were some fantastic examples out there of, but probably also some missed opportunities, is how involved each retailer have their staff in the sales growth process. And we know from working in other sectors that the more you can take that message closer to the ground by getting your staff involved, the more likely you are to have a greater sales growth. And then on the aggressive sales growth strategy, I think the areas where people were really winning out there for those small number who were doing it, and a lot of opportunity for others to follow, are the areas of databases. Some really smart stuff among a small core group of you, whether it's text database, whether it's Facebook, whether it's email. So really strong activity among a small core, and probably opportunity for the larger group. Some retailers are working very, very hard still with their trade customers. I think some retailers think that the trade customers are completely gone, and there may have been an indication of clocking out on trade customers with a small number, so perhaps opportunity for some to grow there. And equally, the events that were in place for cash customers, and for many of you, that has been a transition, perhaps going from a trade-only shop to now a shop that is largely cash-driven. And that transition across the industry is moving very quickly, but there's probably an opportunity to run more themed events across the industry in general. And lastly, I'll leave you with a thought, with a quote that comes from Barack Obama, which I think is so appropriate for your industry. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. And I think that's so appropriate to your industry. You are achievers in this room. You are overachievers in this room. I think give yourselves a round of applause and look forward to what is coming next. Congratulations on what you've achieved. I've enjoyed this immensely, and thanks for the opportunity.